Thank you so much for being here with me today. My name is Caitlin McBride, and I'm so excited to talk to you about this. This is donor stewardship. It's something I'm so passionate about. And honestly, this is probably what made me fall in love with fundraising as a career over a decade ago. So let's jump on in. So, what I'm going to talk to you about today is how we can have meaningful, consistent donor stewardship when you've got limited time and resources, when you're spinning all of the plates, and when it always feels like there's something more to do. My goal at the end of the session is to have you leave with really tangible, realistic strategies that feel good and actually fit your capacity, especially if you're in a small organization and you're doing it all, because I have definitely been there. So who's this webinar for? This webinar is for executive directors who are doing fundraising on top of everything else. They're for fundraisers who are working, it's for fundraisers working solo or with a small team, for anybody who wants to thank donors, but you feel too busy, for people who want to build real donor relationships without burning out, and fundraisers who want simple, value-based stewardship strategies that really work. And why stewardship? Why does stewardship even matter? Why are we talking about this today? I always find that it feels like the focus is often on chasing that next big donor, but actually longevity is so key in donor relationships, and it gives you and your organization the stability you need for long-term planning. You don't need a revolving door of donors. You need donors who are going to stick with you. Stewardship also allows you to really build a community that's in partnership with you and coming alongside you in your work, which aligns with community-centric fundraising values, which for me is something that is really important. And I think my favorite thing about stewardship is that you get to have a career that is rooted in gratitude. And I think that's just such a privilege. And it's something that is so good for our health, for our mental health, and for just the way that we move through the world. So I really hope that we can stop thinking of stewardship as something that we have to do, but something that we get to do. I mean, we get to tell people how great they are and the wonderful things that they're making happen. And I think that's pretty amazing. So what I'm going to give you today is some tangible and realistic strategies. And afterwards, you're going to get this recording, as well as some tools that you can use right away. And I know that if you implement these strategies, you're going to see some improved relationships and you're going to see your giving increase. And these are not things that I have Googled or asked ChatGPT to come up with. Like, these are real strategies that I implemented when I was a fundraising department of one. I was the entire fundraising department. So this is not things that I did with a big team or a big budget behind me. And they actually helped me grow my individual campaign results by 56% in 1 year. And then I continued that growth to 90% over 2 years. So that's nearly double. And this was a significant portion of revenue for my organization. So it really made a big difference to the organization itself and also what we could provide our community. Okay, so this is our little agenda. We're going to be talking about our stewardship dreams, what we would love to be able to do, but the reality that we face, the strategies that keep donors coming back, next steps, and where you get help, including if you want to work with me. Who am I? Why am I talking to you today? My name is Caitlin McBride. I'm a certified fundraising executive, and I've been fundraising for over a decade. I actually started my career at a very large scale and long-standing nonprofit in the UK, in Edinburgh in Scotland. And then I moved home to Canada and I worked in the kind of smaller grassroots charities. And I really loved being in that space because it gave me the ability to be nimble and responsive in those small organizations. I also consider myself a fundraising farmer, which means that I love cultivating those long-term relationships and really building trust and sharing impacts for that long-term longevity in those partnerships. And obviously, when I was in smaller organizations and wearing all the hats and doing everything from tax receipting to strategy, I didn't have time to show donors all the love that I wanted. There's always something else to do. So through years of experience and testing, and admittedly a lot of trial and error, I developed these really easy to implement donor stewardship practices that I could actually do, even when I was juggling all of the spinning plate. Now, I'm a consultant at Further Together, and I work with amazing nonprofit clients across the US and Canada to raise funds and implement donor stewardship practices that are meaningful, authentic, and aligned with our capacity and values. So, let's talk about our dreams versus reality. Before we get into that, I want us to say what you can get by practicing consistent stewardship. When you practice consistent stewardship, even in small ways, you can increase your donor retention, and just a 10% increase in retention can significantly boost your revenue year after year. And actually, Neon One's generosity report recently showed that donors who stick with an organization actually tend to grow their donation over time. So it isn't that somebody is just donating $40 to your organization year after year, which is fantastic. That donation amount actually tends to increase the longer that a donor is donating to you. Stewardship also allows you to build real relationships. So a 30-second video or a short thank you call can really help donors feel seen and feel valued. And I'm going to show you an example of one of those videos in this webinar. And it can create community. Donors aren't just ATM machines. They're your partners, they're your cheerleaders, and your storytellers. And you can shift culture. Stewardship really shifts your organization from transactional fundraising to really transformational relationship building. And that's so powerful. But not all stewardship feels particularly realistic, especially for those of us who are in smaller organizations and wearing many hats. I know when I would go to other webinars, I would leave with some very unrealistic expectations of stewardship. And these are some of the ideas I heard. These are all real. These all came from webinars, other fundraisers, other fundraising resources. So these are some of the ideas. I was told that I should be giving every donor a potted plant with a handwritten note that says, "Thank you for helping us grow." Cute. Yep. I should be hand delivering flower bouquets and bespoke tea bags to each donor. And I should be writing my donors personal thank you poems. Now, I would love to be doing all of that. It would be wonderful. But why don't these work well for some nonprofits? Like, why are we here today and not out hand delivering our flower bouquets and bespoke tea bags? And when and where maybe would they work? I'd love to, if anybody has any comments or wants to share maybe in the chat or take yourself off mute. You raised your hand, Rashida. Go for it. Do you want to take yourself off mute?
I was typing, but somehow I raised my hand. That's okay.
There you go. That's okay.
I was going to write capacity constraints. I mean, it's the first so jumps into mind. Can't hand deliver hundreds of potted plants.
100%. Yes, I'd love to, but not, budget, time. Yep, definitely for those. I know when I was in nonprofit organizations, if I had a stewardship budget at all, it was like 3 figures. Like this was not enough for maybe one bouquet, and that was about it. Does anybody have any ideas of like where they might work? So who might be doing these? What other organizations might be doing this kind of stewardship?
I know when I was with the American Heart Association, I worked with schools, and so I would drop off cutesy little things with the schools because we were trying to get more schools in the program. So that was a lot of my time was allotted to that because we had other people to help support.
Love that. Yeah. So you've had like more capacity and you were able to go door to door. So somebody else said, organizations with a strong volunteer program. Totally. But yes, when you are one person doing all of the things, like these are just not realistic and really hard. And I found going to some of these stewardship webinars and everything, honestly, like I would leave feeling worse because I was like, I can't live up to that and I can't live up to those expectations. So that is why I really kind of had to start from scratch to develop some of these my own strategies that were realistic and manageable and that I could be consistent with, that I could keep going with year after year. So I'm going to go through these and I'm going to start with the most low barrier and easiest to implement strategy and then work up from there. And for each one, I'm going to tell you who it's for, why it works, some barriers might come across, and some pro tips if I have any. And, I really want you to think about what fits your capacity right now. So don't try to do everything all at once. start where you are and then add to your stewardship as and when you can. So diving on in, strategy 1. All right. Personal phone calls and emails to donors. I know this isn't groundbreaking. You've definitely heard this before, but I want to give you ways that you can actually implement this and make it consistent. So your phone calls and your emails are to acknowledge their donation, to share the impact it will have, and to deepen the donor's relationship with you. And they can be done by a volunteer, an ED, or a board member, whoever has capacity and loves to chat on the phone. And I will say this is one of my favorite tasks to give board members, especially. It's a very nice, like low lift ask, and it's nice for donors to get a call from a board member. And it often has a dual purpose of the board member then gets to hear more about why somebody donated, and then inspires the board member even more to be a champion of your organization. So it's my little early hot tip with that one. So who this is for, this is organizations who are just starting out with their stewardship, but they have access to their donors' contact information, and for organizations who are looking to build one-on-one relationships. Why it works, it gives donors a personal touch with low time and financial investments. The result is that donors feel seen and valued and connected, often leading to increased donor retention and more frequent giving. And some of the barriers you may come across here is no time, no process for who's doing the phone calls. And honestly, that's where I see most nonprofits get stuck. And if you hate talking on the phone, which is totally legit, and that's why I say that personal emails are an option as well. What you need to actually make it happen is a easy phone call script or an email template. And I've got both of those for you. That's part of the tools that I'm going to be sending out afterwards. And a way to track thank you calls and any donor notes. So any notes or relevant information that comes out of those phone calls. And that could be through your CRM or a simple tracking spreadsheet, but you need to have accountability for who is making those calls. And you need to see who has been called and who hasn't, who's still waiting for the phone call. And I've got this for you as well. I've got a tracking template that I've used for lots of organizations. So I'll send that to you after the webinar so you can get going on that right away. So my other pro tips here are setting up systems to boost your success. So reusable email templates, automation if you can, as we talked about, volunteer or board support, email reminders to make sure that you actually call that person because everyone's busy. You must be able to say your script without sounding like a robot. I'm going to say this a few times during this presentation, but authentic is better than polished. And make sure that you're not turning this thank you into an ask. And please don't say, don't worry, I'm not calling to ask you for money. Like, don't turn that into a negative. Like, don't put that into their head that calling to ask for money is a bad thing, because at some point you will call them to ask for money. So don't frame it as something negative. All right. Next up, strategy 2, authentic video messages. I love these. So these are just short, authentic videos that demonstrate impact and deepen relationships to increase the likelihood of a repeat gift. So these can be one-to-one. So it can be a personal video that's sent to one donor, or one-to-many. So it would be a more generic video that you send to lots of people. And this is for organizations that are looking to strengthen relationships by showing real faces and real voices. So it's for organizations that are looking to build those, as I said, either one-to-one relationships or one-to-many relationships. Why it works, it's low cost, it takes a short amount of time, but it's something that really makes your cause and your impact come to life for the donor. And the result is that donors are emotionally engaged, increasing trust and likelihood of a second gift. Some of the barriers for this might be ensuring confidentiality. So when you're recording a video, sometimes not having something to show in your organization, like if you don't have a physical space. And if you're camera shy, which, is legit. These strategies aren't going to be for everybody, but if you do have somebody in your organization who's interested and is able to do it, rope them in. What you need to make it happen is just a Loom account. So it does require a subscription. It's $180 USD a year. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a nonprofit discount. I already looked into that for you. I will say if you're not using Loom, you would use it for more than just this. Like, it's a very, very powerful tool. I use it for so many things, for recording instructions and messages all the time. So I'm not an affiliate. This is just legitimately, it's a really good tool. The other thing you need is your phone. You record the video on Loom, and then when you're done, just send the link in an email. And then similar to phone calls, you also need a system to decide who is getting the videos. So is that going to be all of your donors, just the top donors, and recording when a video has been sent? So I'm going to see if I can show you next. Okay, I'm going to show you a video in the next slide. So my pro tips, as I mentioned when I was talking about the phone calls, just keep it real. Don't be polished. Authenticity is best. Show something tangible in your video, like behind the scenes of your organization or on site at a program. Make sure that you're respecting privacy. So stay away from participants. Try not to have participants in your video, or if you are going to, make sure that you're far away so no one is identifiable. And just use portrait mode and film it selfie style. Okay, and here I'm going to try to show you the video. Hopefully you can see my screen okay. Okay, let me do a full screen here. Let me know if you can't see this.
We can see it, but we can't hear it.
Oh, no. Okay. I don't know if I'll be able to fix that, unfortunately, but
Oh, can you throw the link in the chat?
I can definitely throw the link in the chat.
Perfect.
And we'll send this out with the slides as well. Okay, well, I'll give you the rundown of what that was. That was just me on site, 30 seconds. As you could see, that was, fully no makeup. Like I was at a camp that my organization was running for kids who had a cancer diagnosis. And I was just filming it selfie style and rotating around. I was far enough away from the kids so that nobody was identifiable, but I was just saying that we're here. This is what this looks like. These are some of the things that we're doing, and just sharing lots of gratitude. Unscripted, very authentic, nothing fancy. It took me, less than a minute. I did that over a lunch break when I was at the camp one day, and it was super impactful, and donors loved it. Some of my pro tips and everything with this: if you don't need to say the donor's name, they can be reused. Like I just did that one video for all of my donors and sent those out to the donors who had donated to the campaign to send those kids to camp. And my other pro tip, if you're feeling a bit awkward about it, don't watch the video after you've recorded it. If you feel like it's good and you've hit your points and you don't need to watch it, don't rewatch it. You will feel awkward watching it and then you won't want to send it out. So just do it, send it out. It'll be fine. They'll love it. Doesn't need to be perfect. All right. Next up, strategy 3. Impact emails, stories that stick. All right. The strategy here is short story-based emails that are sent every other month to donors showing how their support is making a difference. And this is for organizations with a mass email system like MailChimp or Constant Contact and a small bank of stories. So why it works, the engagement and gratitude and storytelling don't just drop off after the first gift. This keeps donors connected all year long. There's no hard asks in these emails, just meaningful stories and appreciation. And the result here is that these consistent touch points build trust and strengthen your relationship, and they ensure that they don't forget about you. And the stronger the relationship, the more likely donors are to increase their giving. And just a little anecdote, when I employed this strategy, we actually had a donor within a few months increase their giving from $100 to $10,000 just by sharing some of these stories. And they stayed a longtime donor at that $10,000 level. So it is very powerful. Some of the barriers you might see here are if you don't have stories or you don't have permission to share stories, and if you don't have a way to segment your donors on email in your email system using tags. Some of the things you need to make it happen: stories that are authentic, they capture your work, and they've been approved for public use, like by the subject. So you need to make sure that if you're telling a story about somebody, that they have seen it and that they're okay with that going out. And then you need an email management system that can send bulk emails to your donor base, and you need your donors tagged in your email system so you can segment them. Some of my pro tips for this are rewrite your stories at the beginning of the year so they're ready to go even through busy periods. So if I was sending these out every other month, you really only need 6. And actually, I would usually take that down to 5 because I wouldn't send one out during year end because there was always so much going on and sending so many emails out. So really, you only need 5 stories for the whole year. So that's totally doable. And keep them short. Make sure they're like under 300 words. Most people are going to be reading these while they're on their phone and making dinner and juggling lots of other things. And try to make sure that they're light on formatting as well. Plain text is best. And no photos unless it actually really adds to the story. We've actually found with our clients that photos decrease the engagement that our emails get. So yeah, making it just as plain text and simple as possible is the best. I'd also say no ask. You can add a donate button if you can make it look like part of the email template. So don't try to squeeze an ask in there, but if it can kind of look like part of the email template, then it's okay to have. And, if you're short on stories, ask program staff for a moment that stuck with them this month. This does not need to be perfect. There does not need to be a narrative arc, just something that captures the work you do and the impact that it has. And the video that I was trying to show you was actually for a campaign. And I wrote that entire campaign story off of one comment that program staff gave me, which was that a dad had come up to her at the end of camp the previous year and given her a hug and said, "Thank you. There's nowhere else for my son to go." And that was it. That's all I needed to write my whole campaign, because just in that one moment, that captures everything about the program. So I think just, finding those bits and pieces and nuggets you can really create these short stories with. All right, strategy 4, something to hold, donor postcards. These are postcards with a templated or handwritten message that they thank you and have an impactful photo. I try to send them twice a year. And this is for organizations with a functional CRM and a bit of a budget for direct mail. So this is for organizations that are looking to build relationships one-to-many. I don't know how much you'll be able to see with my background and everything here, but I'll try to do the TikTok thing. You see, this is one of the photos and everything here. So this is the one that I've got on the screen. And then if you have a little bit more of a budget, this is something one of our clients did. And if it relates to your programs, what you do, I think it's a great idea. This is actually a plantable postcard. So this can be planted and it's really cute and it grows a bunch of wildflowers, and then your donors will think of you. So if that's something that's connected to your programs, if you maybe run a community garden or something, that's definitely a really cool option to think about. So why this works, it's low cost. The postcards definitely cost a lot less than the foldable cards. And I do find that with postcards, a lot of donors will put them on their fridge, which is really fun. And then you stay visible, and then they'll remember you for your next donation. And the result here is that this increases brand recall and emotional connection, leading to better long-term donor loyalty. Some of the barriers you might encounter here, if you don't have a good photo, if you don't have reliable donor data, like if you don't have good addresses, and if you don't have capacity to write messages, and obviously if you have no budget for direct mail. What you need to make it happen is a Canva account. And I will say, not everybody knows this, so I want to make sure you do, that Pro is free for nonprofit. So if you haven't taken advantage of that, please do. And you can create your postcards right in Canva. And if you're in Canada, and I think in the US as well, you can send them straight from Canva to a Staples location to be printed. And they're usually ready within a couple of days. And I think the cost for what I would get was always under a couple $100, and that's Canadian. The other thing that you need is a nice photo with permissions from the subjects. Make sure you tell them that you're using it for this purpose. You don't want anybody coming into someone's house and seeing themselves on their fridge without knowing that they're going to be there. And then you need a list of people you're sending postcards to and a way to track when they've been sent. And you also need people who are going to write those personal messages for you so your arm doesn't fall off. Some of my pro tips, I think as you saw in one of these here, these postcards, you can see it, got these nice little thank you messages in or thank you signs in the photos. I would always have a stash of these at the office. And if anybody was going out to a program site or an event, I would get them to take those with them and just do a few photos, people holding those signs. And then I would have a really nice bank of thank you photos that I could pull out for this and for other things and be able to send to donors and volunteers, everything like that. So I love having those little thank you signs and those cards. And then you can handwrite, you can have templated messages for some, and then you can do handwritten messages to certain segments of your donors. So maybe your top 20% of financial donors, your monthly donors, longtime donors, volunteers, etc. And pay attention to donors who don't want mail. There's some that are going to have that preference, and that's okay. Just make sure that you exclude them from the mailing. And pay attention to the cardstock that you're using. So make sure that you're kind of getting a medium cardstock. Don't go too thick or too shiny, because then donors might think that you don't need the cash if things look too expensive. And this is a hot tip. I haven't actually done this before, but Maria put this in. I think it's a great idea that you can use your bypass tray to personalize each piece using a handwritten font. So without the manual labor, which is great. And you can do the same thing with the envelope. And as you scale, you can consider services like Handywritten, which will kind of do a handwritten message for you if you have the budget as you scale. All right, last one. This is celebrating milestones. So donor anniversary email. So sending donors an email on the anniversary of a significant donation or the start of their monthly donation. This is for organizations that have strong CRMs. So you really need good reporting and automations to make this happen. And this is for organizations who are looking to build one-to-one relationships or one-to-many relationships. It works because it brings your organization to the top of their mind, demonstrates the impact they've made, and also gives them a little nudge to make another gift. The result is that it drives renewed giving by reinforcing the donor sense of partnership and long-term impacts. And some of the barriers you might have are, I think a big one is technology. This definitely needs to be automated as much as possible. And you need to have that good data on their first donation dates. And also you need to kind of have like a clear impact story that you can share about what their donation has supported over the last year. So what you need to make it happen, as I mentioned, good CRM that's going to have good reporting capabilities that will show the date of their first gift. Automated reminder systems or emails that can be sent from your CRM so you can remember to send those emails. And a good donor anniversary email template, which I have written already and I can send to you after this. My tips here, if you need to set up the technology to do this, if it's not something that's automated in your CRM, please test. Make sure you're setting it up right. You have to get the data right here. And if it feels too much to do this with one-time donors, which is going to be a much larger pool than your monthly donors, start with the anniversary of first gifts for monthly donors. I think that that's a really nice starting place and a really nice touch point. And these are the ones who've been with you for a long time. And it's really nice to show that you value that relationship and value their contribution. Okay. Now that's it. Those are my strategies. I'm going to talk briefly about how often you should steward and some next step. And then I'd love to have some time for questions. So when we're talking about stewarding, when someone makes a gift, they should really be thanked within a week, but ideally within 2 days. And I do have to say that a bland insert name here email that goes out with an attached receipt does not count as a thank you. So it can be automated, but it needs to be more personalized than that. So if you have the ability to customize your thank you within your CRM, definitely do that. Make it more heartfelt. Make sure you're including impact and donor stories in there. And I think you should really try to connect with your donor base at least every other month. And this can be through a newsletter or through those impact emails we talked about. But you need to stay connected with them. We can't only reach out to our donor base when we want money. For monthly donors, we can celebrate their anniversary. And for major donors, which I'm going to pause for a second, I just really want to encourage everybody to expand their definition of major donors outside of just monetary contributions. And also think about other types of contributions as well, that people that you can put into this category. So thinking about your amazing volunteers, board members, those kinds of things. So making sure that you're having a touch point with those people quarterly to build that one-to-one relationships. And, just remember that stewardship doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be handwritten poems and bespoke tea bags. It just has to be real. It has to be doable, and it has to be consistent. And then just to finish this part off, start where you are. So pick the level that suits your current capacity and the systems that you have in place. These are systems that, yes, I implemented and I implemented myself, but it was over the course of a couple of years. So you need to make sure that you're doing something consistently first and doing it well and that it's working for you before you add anything else. So if you want to set yourself a goal, maybe choose one of those things to implement this month. And if you are still feeling overwhelmed about stewardship and keeping up with that on top of everything else, that's something that our team at Further Together can support you with. We are real experienced fundraisers that specialize in helping leaders and organizations like yours. And, we help you build practical, sustainable stewardship plans that won't burn you out. We implement systems that do the work for you. We craft meaningful, ethical donor communications that capture you without losing your voice. We train staff and board so you're not doing it all alone. We really try to become part of your team and provide that real support for real fundraisers. So if you want to keep the conversation going, please reach out to us. I've got a QR code with my LinkedIn on the next slide. I would love to connect with you. Or you can visit gofurthertogether.ca. We'll put that maybe in the chat and obviously part of our follow-up email. We'd love to talk about how we can make your fundraising strategy not just doable, but delightful. Here is my QR code. Please connect. Thank you. Okay, I'd love to open it up if there's any questions. If anyone wants to come off mute, if you have any burning stewardship queries,
I have a question.
go for it.
I threw it in the chat, but I just wanted to say it.
Oh,
Okay,
there
so
you go.
if I have none of these strategies in place, is there one that you would recommend I start with?
And I think that's kind of where I've tried to kind of structure it a little bit, which starting from the easiest and most accessible, which I think would be you're doing the phone calls and emails. And as I said, it's not groundbreaking and, people have heard of it all the time. The thing that makes a difference is being able to do those things consistently. So often people are like, oh, I'm definitely going to call my donors, but there's no system for people to be told that they need to call a donor, no system to say, oh, this person's already been called. So having something that is when somebody makes a donation, pop them in the spreadsheet, tag your board member or your ED, anything like that, and then they have to mark it off that they've been called. So I think starting from that place of just doing those phone calls or those personal emails is a great place to start, and just making sure that that is very systematized so that it doesn't fall off of anyone's radar. I guess I saw something else pop up in the chat. The selfie style video message intended for engaging younger donors? Have you seen evidence that it's also engaging for older audiences? That's a great question. I'd say it's definitely good for the younger donors. I would send this to everybody. Yeah, everybody who was a donor in my organization, whether it was somebody who was younger or if it was a family foundation. And I got great feedback and thank yous from all demographics, because I think that it is just something that's very unique and it's also very powerful too. It really brings your organization to life and the work that you do. Even if you're in an organization that provides counseling support, for instance, obviously you can't show people who are getting that support on the video, but you could be in the room where they get that kind of support, where in the counseling room, and just kind of having that picture, I think just really brings things to life for a donor. And in my previous organization, we would do a lot of food support. So I spent a lot of time filming myself opening up fridges. And it was just to bring that to life to somebody that this is what you've done and this is the food that you've been able to provide. So I wouldn't say from an anecdotal perspective, I wouldn't say that there was a better reception from a certain demographic versus another one. Okay, I've got another one. I think phone calls are important. I know that personally I would love to receive them, especially if I were sponsoring a student or something. However, there are so many people, I hear this, so many people now who do not want to talk on the phone whatsoever. How do you get around this barrier? Do you leave voicemails? What about text? Yes. Yeah, voicemails. A lot of it was voicemails. I hear you. I mean, yeah, usually if I don't recognize a phone number, I will let it go to voicemail as well. The voicemails are just as powerful. Ideally, you're talking to your donor because then you're kind of getting that back and forth and understanding a little bit more about why they donated. But leaving a voicemail is still wonderful and really impactful. I have done texts as well. I usually default to a phone call, but I would get messages sometimes from people saying, hey, I prefer text. And then I would make a note in their file. And next time I needed to call them or reach out to them, I would see that and I would send them a text message instead. So my default is, still to try to do the phone calls, and don't get discouraged if you're just leaving a lot of voicemails. And sometimes people call you back too, and then you get to have a conversation, which is really fun. Okay. Thanks. Good. Yes, don't be afraid of the voicemails. Okay. Give it another minute if there's any other questions. Where can you find the recording from today? We're going to send that out as part of our follow-up email. So we're going to send out the recording. We're going to send out some of those tools that I talked about. And then I think we've got some links in the chat. But happy to send out some links to the podcast as well. Okay. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, then I just want to thank you all for being here today. I know if you're here, that means that you're busy, you're juggling a lot. So I really appreciate your time. And I hope that these have been helpful. And I love talking about this. I love talking about donor stewardship. So please reach out anytime. I'd love to connect with you. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. So thanks so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.